Let's get chilly. Hello, hello. Welcome back to Let's Chill, the official, unofficial Minnesota Wind Chill, Minnesota Strike podcast. I'm Jeph.
I'm Jay.
And I'm Caine.
Boy, has it been a minute. Uh, I think we covered playoffs, the first round of playoffs. We did not really cover championship weekend, and yet here we are at the end of the season. A lot has happened in the last couple weeks, and the Wind Chill were almost repeat champions. Just to give a quick recap, they bounced back in the semifinals against the Atlanta Hustle. Um, and I think a lot of people, Winchell fans excluded, did not necessarily have faith in them, but they did come back 23-21. I think the Winchell faithful really were, they were in it the whole time. I didn't see a lot of doubt within a lot of the like fan chats, any Instagram posts, even in our chats. I feel like we were pretty optimistic that they were always going to bounce back, and they were always in that game. And we'll break down that game a little bit more in depth. But anyway, that game brought them to the championship game against Boston Glory on Saturday night, and we were all looking around like, "Oh crap, it's gonna happen again!" Like it was crazy. Unfortunately, they did lose 17-15 to the Glory. The Glory, I believe, won their first championship of the franchise history. Jeff Babbitt won like his fifth, or fifth hundredth or something like that. I don't know, something stupid. Uh, and it was a good championship weekend. I think all things said and done. Um, Personally, I can't be too upset. I think it was a good championship weekend. Boys, what were your takeaways?
I think that honestly, um, the Glory game was one of those games we were watching where Minnesota never felt like they were that far behind, but it also kind of always felt unwinnable when watching it. I always felt like the Glory just were always just like half a step ahead of Minnesota, even when the score was, tied or Minnesota was like playing well. It's always felt
Mhm.
like the Glory were going to find a way to come back. And I don't want to say that in the way of like Minnesota's a bad team. I truly think the Glory were cut above everyone else this year, and that they really put that on full display. And Minnesota hung with them as best as they could, as best as anyone in the league probably could have this year. So to lose only by two in that final game is quite a feat.
Yeah, honestly, I think making it back to back to the championship game to me, and we'll get into this a little bit more later. I think that holds a lot more weight than winning the championship. I mean, obviously, if we won
Mhm.
it, it would have been awesome.
Yeah.
But I think the fact that we made it says enough to me, means enough, and gives me enough hope and enough trust in this team that I'm like excited for next season. I'm not disappointed in how it ended at all, even though like yeah, I like Jay's name says on the stream. For those of you who are just listening, like so close. It's disappointing.
I agree, Kane. I think we didn't really need vindication, but I think there was a kind of a bit tugging at all of our minds. And I use the royal hour, like Winchell fans, maybe even Winchell players. Like you wanted some vindication. Like we do belong here. We do belong in that conversation. We belong at championship weekend. We belong in the championship game. And I think all season, rightfully so, I was one of them. People were very pessimistic about the Winchell. People did not really believe that they could make it. Um, I believe that they deserve to, but I didn't think they could overcome Chicago. But coming off of last year, where like the fluke win, the Mickey Mouse championship, all these crappy things people are saying. So the fact that the Winchell did make it back, lost by two in the championship game to the Glory, where Jay, to your point, the Glory probably would have beaten the Hustle. Like if the Hustle would have beat Minnesota, like I think the Glory were pretty much destined to win championship weekend this year. I think that speaks volumes to the Windchill success, to the team that they've built, and to the future that they have. This whole podcast episode, I believe, is going to be very optimistic, looking for the future, um, and that is exactly what I think we got was vindication in that championship game, the appearance.
Yeah, absolutely. I have no more like broad thoughts. Do you want to like get to like specific breakdown stuff or
Yeah,
what
let's
happened?
just go chronologically. Let's starting with the Hustle. Like I guess any player standouts, play standouts, or just in general. We're not going to harp too much on the commentators. We will say the commentators, especially, were really bad. They did not believe in the wind chill, and they cleaned it up the next game. And
I
and shout out to the fans for I think getting on them for that.
I totally agree. Again, I don't want to harp on them too much. I will say that at like halftime, I think it was Evan Lepler who actually Evan Lepler has a really good way of doing this of like being pretty negative, but then being like, but actually, I think he had a really good point where he's like, but I mean, Josh Caine had more throwaways in the first half than he has the whole year in any individual game. If Minnesota's
Right,
not playing like that, they're winning this game. And then look
right.
what happened in the second half. So like, yeah, like
I think
I
he's
think
a
that's
realist for sure. I think he's very realistic. He's seen enough sports stories play out where,
Hmm.
and then I think that's a fair perspective. Just before we get into like the breakdown stuff, I think it's totally fair that Minnesota was not favored against Atlanta. I think it's totally fair that we were not favored against Boston, and that kind of plays into how I feel good about our outcome anyway.
Here's I'm trying. I'm going to use commentators to kind of talk about the game, segue into the game a little bit. Here's kind of where the beef I had is you still got to call the game in ahead of you. Like Josh Klain aside, and we can talk about Josh Klain. Klain, if you're listening to this, first of all, maybe shut it off. Second of all, we'd love to have you in the pod. Um, Putting Josh Klain aside, yes, he had a bad game. He had a terrible game. You got to call the game in front of you. And the Winchell were losing by what, maybe three at the largest gap. It's not like they were losing by six, right? It's not like the Chicago game, the Salt Lake Shred game. Like this was a competitive game from start to finish. I'm sorry. Even at half, that's a competitive game. And so to say that the Winchell, I mean, I think they pretty much explicitly said like the Winchell are bad. Like that's not fair, and that's kind of doing them dirty. And so again, using that to segue into the game itself, like it was a very competitive game, despite some poor individual performances. The Winchell really played as a team throughout the whole weekend, especially in Atlanta against Atlanta, and I think that's what is really positive looking forward into the next few years.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to say positive, our defense just put its foot
Hmm.
right up Atlanta's anything that it was
Yeah.
trying to do. It really stopped every attack they tried. Like we talked about it before, starting from the polls. Obviously, you get Cameron Lacey, James Pollard, Sam Berglund had a couple polls, I believe. Like very consistently, it allows Minnesota to get down the field, and it is immeasurable how helpful that is for the
Hmm.
defense and how much pressure that creates on the offense. And sure, maybe they don't get a block, they don't get a Callahan every single time, but because it took the offense an extra 15 throws to get out of the end zone, they're
Right.
already tired by the time they're at the 30-yard line, right? They don't have that extra step, and it allows a break, it allows a block down the field. And so I think Minnesota just like did everything right on defense at
Mhm.
this playoffs or this
Well,
championship weekend.
and even against the Glory, there are a couple sideline traps that they set where like that's Minnesota's bread and butter. That's like the Central Division's bread and butter. A lot of Central Division teams do that. But the Winchell did that very effectively this year against Glory, where I don't watch the East Division games, so I guess I can't say, but I would guess that the Glory don't see that very often based on how they tried. They figured it out at the end, obviously. I mean, they still won. But right, Kane, to your point, it still sets up some pressure and like some stuff that you can't necessarily measure. Sometimes it results in a turnover, sometimes it results in a stall, but more so, I think it results in some pressure, some being uncomfortable with the disc in your hands. You're not sure where your next throw is going to be because you're always throwing it to so and so off the pole, but so and so now is not guarded or what. Like it's different. It gives them a different look. So,
yeah. Talking about Caine's, like Minnesota defense really stepped up their game. I believe going into that game, I'm trying to find the UFA posted, I believe Atlanta had an average of 13.5 turnovers per game, which was the lowest in the league by like a wide margin.
well,
I think it was like the lowest in the league by like six. Um, Minnesota had 14 blocks against them.
hmm,
Yeah,
wow,
Minnesota had and Atlanta only had 18 turns in that
It's
game.
crazy.
So like
wow.
Atlanta still had a low turnover count. Like I felt like this was sort of one of those things the announcers were kind of missing in this game when they kept saying like, "Oh, Atlanta's making uncharacteristically like this that throw wasn't characteristic of Atlanta. That was like a bad throw." That's we talk about all the time. how do you make a stat for defensive pressure? Because it's
Hmm.
it's not uncharacteristic for that throw to be made against Minnesota. Like that
Right.
throw is made against Minnesota because there's no dump handler ready. There's no reset. There's no, you know, strike cut. There's nothing available for these handlers. So they're throwing what would be a bad throw or an uncharacteristic throw for them because Minnesota's defense is playing so well. And then also forcing a lot of turns with all of those as well.
I think this is not the point of the conversation. I'm just throwing it out there because I want to get this. I want to like start thinking about this for the future. I wonder if defensive pressure is almost starting. I know it's not a full picture. It's like how many like your average time with the disc in your hands, or like oh they average like 6 seconds until the disc is thrown, or their negative yardage, because there's a lot more resets and dubs
Right.
versus positive yardage. Like I wonder if like those stats kind of play into it at
Right.
all, and
Like more like
we can.
abstract, obscure, kind of like
Yeah,
relative,
yeah.
like relevant to pressure, but not necessarily like a block per se.
Right, right. And
Yeah.
again, it's not gonna paint the full picture, but like I think those kinds of numbers will help measure the quality of defense that like a team like Minnesota puts on a team like Atlanta, you know.
Right. I was just supposed to say before you brought up a stat that measures time and space. One thing I was going to say is that Minnesota excels on defense and against really good teams on offense, like really good offensive teams, because we control the space and the time. We
Yeah.
control how long the handler has to hold the disc for. We control exactly where the resets go. Like we don't let them reset in this space. We force them to reset in this space. Why? Because we have a better chance to get a block over here, whatever, whatever
Hmm.
it is. And then by limiting how much time they have to like be open or limit how much time or forcing them to hold on to the disc longer, I mean, that mentally like forces you to make a worse throw, right? I mean, a
Hmm.
stall six backhand is a lot scarier than a stall one backhand, right?
Hmm.
It's a lot less comfortable. And so by controlling that space, by controlling the time, Minnesota just forces offenses to like you said, Jay, make things that would be uncharacteristic because they're so used to like being the ones in control of the time and the space.
Yeah.
And I will say two more things about Minnesota's defense very quickly. One is that not every point's going to be a break, and Minnesota's defense plays that very well. They're not trying to get a, I mean, they are trying to get a break on every point, but they're okay with 10 extra passes than normal. Like if they took 10 extra passes to get down the field, right, that's 10 extra passes that they already have underneath their belts. And that sort of leads into the second point, which is Atlanta doesn't turn it over all that frequently. They 13.5 blocks per game, however many, whatever their completion percentage is on the season. Well, if they, drop it once every 100 times, make them throw it 10 extra times every possession, every
Right.
10 possessions, they're going to drop the disc. Like
Right.
the Minnesota defense does a very good job of playing that as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And they played their game like they've been playing it all season. Again, we're not really going to talk about the offense. In the spirit of keeping it positive, in the spirit of not calling out individual players too much. But I think we can acknowledge like there's a significant gap in the offensive skill, or at least there was against Atlanta. And I think that's going to be something that the team. I think we've kind of been talking about that for the last couple seasons, basically since we started the pod. That like their offense has been kind of weak, and like when James Pollard came onto the team, I was surprised to hear he's going to be on defense, and certain other players like, oh, okay, that's a defensive player. I think that's an offensive move, but um, I think for me, that's what I'm taking out championship weekend to look forward to 2026. Like that's something that clearly something needs to change there.
I think, I mean, respect to Atlanta, but I think this semifinal game, went kind of exactly how I thought it was going to. I feel like even just within the group chat, we were all kind of saying Minnesota's going to take it by like two, right? We all kind of felt comfortable, not like
Mhm.
confident per se in
Yeah.
Minnesota, but like it made sense that Minnesota would take that away by two when you look at like the numbers and how, yeah, the defense matches up against the offense. But and this might be a good transition into the Boston game. You're right, Jeph, where you say that yeah, the places where we fall short that make us lose the championship game was the offense because our defense was firing on all cylinders still.
Hmm. Yeah, totally. I mean, we can call out individual players in the positive way against Boston. So Noah Hansen, Paul Krenik, Tristan Van de Mortel, all were a couple players who to me stood out, just passing kind of the eye test. Even in Atlanta, I think all those players who I just said just had great games, phenomenal individual games, but also games that contributed again to the team and the wider effort. They were getting blocks, and after a block, they'd make the play on offense, or if they're on offense, like they were contributing to the system like they should have, and just like putting up some unreal numbers against some unreal teams. Like again, these are the best of the league, and to see PK like go up against the best is was super fun.
Well, PK is the best. Let's be clear here.
Yeah, true. They were going up against him. That's true.
Yeah,
Yeah,
let's
yeah.
not get it
Yeah, yeah,
twisted.
Actually, it was, and that's what I kind of what I meant when I said it always kind of felt like Boston was like half a step ahead of Minnesota. I mean, there were some points where I mean we can call out Boston player Ryan Cable. He went up, and there was just
yeah,
no hope that any
yeah.
Minnesota player was getting the disc. I mean, like, what do you? There was clear separation there,
What
and
are you gonna
then
do?
yeah, at that point you have to scheme against that player differently, and there's not enough time to scheme differently against that player in the heat of a
Mhm.
game, which is kind of why I felt like Boston was half a step ahead because they kind of had that dagger in their pocket. Just
Yeah.
Ryan Cable's able to basically outsky anybody on the field.
Do you think we can? I like playing the hypothetical game. Do you think if both teams played each other again, well rested, and let's call it this year's teams, because obviously who knows what's gonna happen next year, like the results will be different. And Jay, I'm asking you specifically because you're saying that Boston kind of had the edge up, or like if Boston was playing tired and the wind chill, like it's not fair to skew it like that. But do you think, Jay, that maybe it was the night before a game against Atlanta that set the wind chill back, or do you think that was going to be the result pretty much no matter what?
Honestly, I don't think watching the game, I don't think Minnesota looked like they were playing tired.
Mm,
Obviously, there's going to be some fatigue from the night before. You might be playing at 95% instead of 100, but they looked at least 95%. I
yeah,
couldn't tell that any Minnesota players are tired. I think this was going to be the result regardless. I do think that it was just one of those things where Orion Cable had a read on Minnesota's defensive scheme. So did Tobit. Like they
yeah.
just they just were playing better. They knew what Minnesota was going to bring and they were planned for it. So even though it was a really close game, even though Minnesota brought their best, Boston was just slightly more prepared.
You know what that brings to my mind is just this conversation just brings to mind the game against Salt Lake Shred, the first championship weekend appearance in 2023. Remember how we were on the fence and we just saw like two or three or four Winchell players lined up, cramped muscles, getting massages, like they were down in like they were in it. They were not, it looked like they weren't very well conditioned. It looked like they were just not prepared. They were putting 120% out there and could not keep up. Like, that was still a pretty tight game. And now 2 years later, like going against again Boston Glory, a very good team, and again just on the eye test, we weren't on the fence this weekend, but it didn't look like they couldn't keep up physically. It didn't look like they were tired from the night before. It was not a conditioning thing, which is that's huge. That's a really good sign.
Yeah, I'm excited. Obviously, just in general for the future of like the sport and the franchise and stuff, but like to see where the athleticism is at, where the playmaking's at in 5 years, 10 years. You know what I mean? And like looking back and being like, dang, remember when the two games back to back, they weren't doing these crazy plays both nights or whatever. I don't know.
Right.
I'm just
Right.
excited to see like, where it goes and yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Um, so we do have mailbag. Before we get to mailbag, I just want to talk really quickly about our thoughts because I want to end on mailbag. It's fun to end on the fans' thoughts. Our thoughts about 2026, real briefly. Um, what do we think the team's going to look like? Who do we think is going to be key, to building around the team? That kind of stuff. Let's look ahead just a little bit here. Jay and Caine, what do you guys think about like maybe call out some specific players? Like who do you think are going to be key to 2026's roster? Assuming everyone comes back. Obviously, we don't know that yet.
Jay, you can take this while I pull something up.
All right. I think first and foremost, Will Brandt is going to make
Yeah.
a resurgence. Um, I think honestly, the announcers were hyping him up a little bit in the championship weekend because they kind of talked about how, he's got that big game experience.
Yeah.
Like he's played, they said it, he's played 12, maybe 13 now with Boston, 13 playoff games in his career. He's played
Jeez.
he's been in the league for like 3, 4 years. Like he is not like
Yeah.
a super vet. So like despite having like a rocky regular season, because we know Will Brandt had a very rocky regular season, his
Hmm.
postseason performance, when he needed to be the best he could be, he was. He was
Hmm.
playing very well. He was making those good passes. And that's not to say he played flawless, but he was playing very well. So I
Hmm.
think, Will Brandt with even more experience, even more playoff experience, is going to be looking to, cut through some teams' defenses real well next year.
Yeah.
I agree with that. I don't agree he had a down season. I think he had a great season. Where you I think the Minnesota offense had a bad season, but I think if there's one shining star you can point to who got stuff done, I think I would say Will Brandt. So I agree with you, Jay, that in the future, but I think this season was to me emblematic of why I trust him for the next couple seasons because he was what the offense was doing correctly. He was hitting the continuation passes. He was extending the field deep himself when he needed to get down the field. He was very consistently taking deep looks when they were open. I think, not to call anybody out, but he wasn't throwing away as many hucks as other hucks on the team, right? So I think that I have a lot more confidence after seeing how he handled a shakier offense this season. So maybe not disagreeing with you, Jay, per se, but like to add on to that point, I think there's a lot more potential here now after seeing this year.
Yeah, I was mostly talking about how his plus minus this year was 15 in 10 games. Last year was 22 and 7.
All right.
Like he like statistically had a lower output for the, and I guess, not everything is goals, assists, there's hockey assists and things in there, but
So my player, I think I have two players who I want to really call out and watch for next year. First, Thomas Schopp. I think again, he's a rookie. He's so young. Like this is his second year. He's only played 6 games in each season, and back-to-back seasons now, and in championship weekend and championship game, he has big game experience, and again, just kind of that another up and coming star. I think he played more offensive points this year than he did last year. So I'm just very curious to see how he's going to develop. I think he's going to be a very key player on the Windchills team, no matter what. And then Max Hanscom. We talked about Max a couple times this season. And I think, again, I don't know what the future of the team and who's going to be on the roster, if he's going to choose to play or stay or what. But I think if he stays, if he's on the team next year, he's just going to be another fun player to watch and build on. And I'm very curious to see like how he'll be used too, because I think he's got a lot of potential. He's young. Um, yeah, this team's just it's going to be a very fun team. It has been and will be to watch for a few years now.
Mhm.
yeah, just real quick about Shope. You said he played more points on offense this year. He didn't that's correct. He didn't play any points on
Compared to
offense.
yeah,
Yeah, in 2024 he didn't play any points on offense. I also just think
yeah.
it's funny. Um, in 2025 he played more points on offense than he played total points in 2024.
Oh, that is funny. Wait, no.
He had, sorry, in the playoffs, not total
Oh,
points.
okay, okay, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry, in the playoffs this year he had more offensive points played than he did total points played.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Okay. My deep cut for someone to build around for the next few seasons. I hope he stays because he's been very good. I already shouted him out once, I think last episode. Blake Craffle on
Mm,
the defense. Um, I think his performance at championship weekend, there's a couple plays where I remember his face afterwards where he didn't get the block, right? It was a close play. He didn't get it. Or he was like right there. He thought he had the right look on it. He just didn't. And you can kind of see him like making the adjustment. You can see it on his face. He's going over what he did wrong. He's looking at the jumbotron and rewatching the play and going, okay, Where should I have been? What did
Mhm.
that guy do better than me? Right. And he's, to me, a very humble, very aware player. And you take someone like Dylan DeClerc, where I feel a very similar energy from him, right? Where he's very much looking at what everything's going on. Where can I fit in? How can I be smart right now on defense? And where can I find my opportunities? And then you add in his height dimension, and I think we have someone who can be an absolute defensive star down the stretch for the team here. So
Nice. Yeah. Lots to look forward to, like I said, in the next year, next couple years. Okay, I want to wrap it up with mailbag. Shout out to everyone who completed mailbag, not only this episode, but every episode as normal. We're looking back at mostly championship weekend and looking ahead again to next year. So my first question, open-ended. Despite a heartbreaking end, the wind chill outplayed many people's expectations once again. How did you feel about the team's championship weekend performance? One person just said great. The other person said, I'll never doubt our team again. It was tough to see the loss, but I'm so proud of what we were able to put together. Yeah, without lingering too much on it, I think that second question, second response is very much what we already talked about. Like it didn't really feel like obviously it was a disappointing end, but it didn't feel like a failed season. It was like very, again, vindicating of what we can do and that we belong at championship weekend. Okay, I love this one. Who is your Winchell MVP of the season? I want both of you guys to answer this as well. So my options were Bevon, James Pollard, Justin Burnett, Paul Krennic, Will Brandt, and Noah Hansen. And I think I put Tristan on there, or maybe that was a write-in.
I believe that
One
was a
per
write-in.
I think so. One person put Tristan Van Martel, one person put James Pollard. So two, from in my opinion, I would have not selected either of them. So that was very surprising. Caine, Jay, what do you guys think? Who's your Winchell MVP for the whole season, not just championship weekend?
Oh, that's
as always, this is the hardest thing to decide, right? I mean, this is
It's a team sport.
faceless army. I mean,
Yeah.
who on this roster is like MVP? I mean this with the utmost respect. None of these guys are a league MVP, and it doesn't feel like any of them are team MVP. And I love
Mhm.
that about this team.
Yeah.
I don't know. Give me. I'll take Justin Burnett just because I think his energy and his plays were very crucial, especially against games like Chicago against Atlanta. So
Mhm. Yeah.
that
um Gabe Yacht. No, in all seriousness. Actually, no, to be completely fair, Gabe Yacht had a an actually pretty good season for the games he played. Um, so shout out Gabe Yacht. If you're listening, we'd love to get you on the pod. Um, but I also think Justin Burnett uh fired up the defense when we needed it most in so many different games. Um, I think he caught two Callahans this year as well. And then I'm just
Yeah.
thinking of the toe touch on the sideline,
Uh-huh.
maybe the best toe touch in UFA history. I mean, come on, that's immaculate. Yeah, when I'm just thinking of like highlight level plays, like the person who's making them the most, it's got to be Justin Burnett.
Yeah. I think my answer is the same. I think my answer is Justin Burnett. He's the showy answer for sure. He's like very obvious MVP, like very visible. But I would almost say like PK or Will Brandt because I think they're very consistent as well. They're very reliable. They just don't show it off as much. Um, but that's not my way of selecting three MVPs. I will choose Justin Burnett just to play by the rules. But yeah, I mean everyone on this list and more deserves to be on this list for sure.
yeah, Gabe Yato, that was a good shout out. Look, he has 9 goals in 6 games and 6 assists and 3 blocks.
Jeez.
I,
Yeah,
that's pretty freaking good.
the
I
next
feel
yacht in the
like.
making. Okay, so this question kind of came out of my spite as a fan about the announcers and what other people have been saying about the wind chill. The question is, after the title in 2024 and the second place finish in 2025, how are the wind chill viewed across the league? The options were a dynasty in the making, formidable, lucky, and non-competitive. And that was basically like 1 through 4, like how well are they favored? I guess in my mind, formidable was slightly less favored than dynasty in the making. So two people selected formidable, and one person said lucky. So I think one person selected both, which is fine. But I don't know.
Yeah,
We only have we have 10 minutes left, by the way.
I'm saying dynasty in the making personally. I feel like Jeph back-to-back appearances is good enough for me to say we
Here's
got something.
here's the question though. How are the Winchell viewed across the league? Not how do you
Oh,
view them?
oh. How they viewed across the league, I feel like they're viewed as formidable and lucky. Yeah, I would press
I
both of
think
those.
lucky. I
I
think
would press both of
lucky.
those.
Yeah.
I think it depends on who you ask. I think if you're asking like analysts, they're gonna say more lucky. But if you're
Mhm.
asking other players, they're probably gonna say formidable.
Yeah, like if you
Like,
ask Atlanta,
Yeah. Yeah,
how
yeah,
does
like
that's a
Atlanta
good point.
feel, right?
I'm sure even Salt Lake, if you ask Salt Lake heading into
Yeah.
championship weekend, hey, would you rather face Minnesota or Atlanta? They're probably gonna say Minnesota over Atlanta, but they're not gonna be happy about that answer. You
They know
know?
what Minnesota's capable of for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's probably the right answer, Jay. I think you're right. I do think analysts hate Minnesota. I think they're always shocked when Minnesota is good or when any Central Division team is good. They're like, they're just battling. I don't know. Anyway. Okay. Thoughts. We have two more questions. Thoughts on the end of the season, predictions, thoughts, hopes for 2026. First person said, although many will think the last 2 years were good, but a product of the Central being bad or whatever excuse, the Winchell are truly a dynasty in the making. The team's incoming class of college kids and other new recruits will fill in any gaps left by people who leave, and this team has the opportunity to be going to championship weekend for years to come. Once you get there, anything could happen. Second answer, I think we finally found our way into the big league. In 2026, I think we're all going to be hungry for our next title, especially now that we came so close this year. I think that first answer, in my opinion, hits it on their head because it's almost like in baseball where you play a series of seven in like the World Series. It's like you don't play one game and determine who's the best. It's like you play seven games and whoever wins four wins. So it's like again, not the better team will always win, but it kind of shakes out where like anything can happen once you get to championship weekend. Like you just have to play a good game and put together four quarters, and then you got to go do it again one more time. Um, yeah, and I think this team, like we've talked on the last 40 minutes, they are formidable. They have the pieces, and they're here to stay. Like nothing seems to be changing in the next couple years, I think.
Yeah, I don't have much to add to these responses. I think they were pretty good. They're accurate.
Yeah, I will say, I mean, if Minnesota makes it probably to like the championship game next year, I think their view across the league changes from, this team that's gotten lucky to, oh, this is, a dynasty in the making. I think
Yeah.
that's how it changes. If one more year in the championship game, 3 years in a
Mhm.
row, it's okay, that's a really good team. That's a team who deserves to be here every year.
Yeah. Yeah. True. Good point. Okay. And one last, any additional comments, questions, or takes you want to share? I'm going to basically let you two do the talking because I think you know the East Division better than I do. What are your thoughts on Boston? To me, they seem like a 2 to 3 player team in the championship game and totally beatable. Do you think they're going to be dominant? Do you think they're going to keep being dominant? Also, do you think DC stands a chance in the championship at all? They've looked good for so many seasons, but keep falling short. Finally, do you think we have a proper rivalry with Chicago now?
Um, I'll hit the first part first.
Yeah.
Boston is a great team. They were not a 2 to 3 player team. I think that is fair in the sense that like Orion Cable was making highlight plays, so it was easier to like remember him in the game. But if you go back and look at like how the stats are distributed throughout the Boston offense and the Boston defense as well, it was a very good team effort from Boston, and I think they absolutely earned it as a team and as a franchise, as a system. So,
Hmm.
uh, they were beatable for sure, but I don't think Minnesota deserved to win because I don't think Boston was a 2 to 3 player team. I think that's discrediting them a little bit. But I do think that yes, they were beatable. DC does stand a chance in the championships. Again, every team across this league does, minus Detroit. And finally, Chicago, screw the Union. Yeah, we got a proper rivalry with them now. I'm very happy that we got the monkey off our back, it feels like.
I 100% agree with that last part. We could have lost to Chicago by 10 in the regular season. Oh wait, we did. Didn't matter. Um,
Hmm.
Minnesota stepped up when it mattered the most and basically said, no, we're as good, if not better than Chicago. Those were warm-ups. Here's where it matters the most. Um, I think that's kind of our rivalry with Chicago is in the postseason more so than in the regular season because, like Jeph was saying earlier, it doesn't matter if you win in the regular season. It matters in the postseason if you can put together those 4 quarters.
Mhm.
The thing about Boston, I totally agree with Caine as well. Boston, I mean, yep, they have name recognition. I mean, they have the 2 MVP favorites on their team with Tobin Krone and Jeff Babbitt. Um, and then, of course, Ryan Cable was putting up some monster numbers in the championship game. But just off the top of my head, I can think of at least 2 more players, Simon Carpella, I believe, and then Topher Davis, who were also putting in a lot of work in that championship game. So I mean, that's 5 guys right there. That's the majority of a line who is playing that star level consistently. So I do not think, Boston's a 2 to 3 player team. But like I said earlier, I do think that they were completely beatable. I think if Minnesota had maybe one more day to scheme against them to prep for them a little bit better almost, to find a way to contain Cable and DeCrana, that they would have had a much better chance and even a chance at winning. So I do think they were completely beatable, yeah.
Yeah. My only thoughts on Chicago is I think we have a proper rivalry, but again, like last season, they didn't look very serious. So I'm gonna say let's give it one more season before we call it a proper rivalry. Like our players returning, all that stuff. But I think we're pretty much there. I think there's a rivalry again. That fire is heating up, and I love that because yeah, even if we lose to Chicago in the playoffs, obviously I'm gonna be heartbroken. But like if it's blow for blow, and then the next year after that we beat them back, like I'm all for that because you don't want to be too lopsided either. Like you do want a rivalry. So okay, well that is it for the season. That is it for this episode. Um, Thank you for everybody who has listened in, who's tuned in, who's participated on our mailbag, who's checked in on our DMs. Like our DMs, every now and then we get someone new coming in and just caught up on the episodes or whatever. I love that. Love seeing that. Um, yeah, and I got you, Caine.
It was
I
for the
did it
fans,
too,
not
but
for
you
you,
can't see
Jeff. I'm
it.
sorry.
Oh, okay, well, anyway, next year is going to be bigger and better than ever. I think the Wind Chill again are going to be back, coming out swinging. I think the Strike are going to be, coming out swinging. I think they've got a lot of, excitement to build on for next year. Um, so yeah, just let's go into this off season with optimism, with excitement, and 2026 is just going to be it's going to be our year yet again. Um, Maybe we'll be back in the off season. I think we say that every year and it never really happens. So stay tuned. Maybe keep following us. Um, but in the meantime, of course, stay chilly and ka-chow.
Good
Stay
job.
chilly.
Stay chilly.
Ciao.